begin with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I'd ask that you remain standing for a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I know all of us in this room come to tonight's meeting with a very heavy heart, knowing of the events that occurred in Newtown over the past week. But tonight, we honor the memories of some very special people. And please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. For a few minutes, I chair the Board of Education, and the only time during the course of the year. And tonight, we need to elect a chair as well as a secretary for the Board of Education. And I'd like to appoint Jody Nasarchik as the acting secretary for the election. Just to remind everybody of the process that we follow in following Robert's Rules of Order, we can take nominations. There is not the necessity of a second, and if you nominate an individual, you cannot go ahead and then nominate a second individual. So at this time, nominations for the chairperson for the Board of Education here in Waterford.
I'd like to nominate Kathleen McCarty as chairperson.
Kathleen McCarty's name is in nomination. Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, nominations are closed. Show of hands, if you would. All in favor of Kathleen McCarty as the chair of the Board of Education for the Waterford Public Schools? The vote is unanimous. I turn the gavel over to you.
Thank you. Excellent job. At this time, I accept a motion for secretary for the Board of Ed. Nomination, excuse me.
I'd like to nominate Jody Nasarchik as our secretary.
Thank you, Ann. Are there any other nominations? Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, consider nominations closed. We'll do a show of hands. All those in favor of Jody serving as secretary, please raise your hand. Thank you. That passes unanimously. Thank you. Thank you very much. At this time, first, if I may just also for a moment, I would like to also echo the superintendent's remarks, and our hearts are very heavy for the Newtown children and teachers, and our board is sending a letter from all of us to them. I know we've all had them in our minds, and you'll hear a little bit more later this evening. I'd also like to recognize Fran Sweeney, who was with our school system for many, many years as a coach and a teacher, and he just passed away recently. So thank you all for recognizing Fran. At this time, I would ask the board to consider adding to the executive session a motion to add to the agenda in the executive session for safety procedures and security strategies. We'll come at the end of the meeting. Jody, is there a second to that? Second by Kevin. Any comments? We'll move to vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, thank you for that. That takes us at this time right to our introduction of visitors and guests. Superintendent?
So I'd like to welcome Pat Fedor, who is here tonight representing our administrators, Martha Shoemaker, as well as Linda Braley, I think I saw earlier, from the Federation of Classical Teachers, Julianne Hinkle from the New London Day is here this evening, Paul Patrone from the Patch, Kristen Hanner. Hi, Kristen. Kristen is the junior class president, and later in the meeting, we're providing the board with a report from the high school.
I think that covers everyone. Thank you. At this time, do we have any comments or anyone from the audience wish to speak to the board? No comments from the board? To the board, we will move right to our presentation. And our first is to our high school sophomore, I believe.
Yeah, so we have two folks in the audience tonight that the board would like to recognize for their accomplishments. The first is a sophomore at Waterford High School. Her name is Asia Langley. In addition to being a terrific person and a great student, she's also an outstanding swimmer. She is the Class S skate swimming champion in the 50-yard freestyle and the 100-yard freestyle. She's also a member of the class council. She's very active in working with our youth in swim programs. So, Asia, congratulations on your outstanding accomplishment and for joining us this evening. We have a certificate of recognition for your great accomplishment.
Certificate of recognition and acknowledgement of your outstanding achievement, the 2012 Class S State Championship, swimming champion, 50-yard freestyle and 100-yard freestyle. Congratulations, Asia. That's wonderful. I've been attending a lot of swimming lately, and I'll tell you, I get tired of watching. A lot of good work. Thank you.
Congratulations. A sophomore and a state champion. There's also members of your family here tonight. Would you like to introduce them?
My dad, Brian Langley, my mom, Jessica Langley, and my little brother, Jason.
All right. Thanks for coming. We also have a staff member who teaches here in the Waterford Public Schools that we would like to recognize, Ann Hayward-Leal. She currently teaches over at Oswegatchie School. And up here on the table, I have 3 of her books. So we have a prolific author among us. And the books, 2 of the books are really, I think, for upper elementary students, would you say? Young adolescents in middle school. And then in a collection around my favorite bookstore, and one of my favorite bookstores is really the one that you identified in this book, and it's over at Bank Square in Mystic. So we wanted to take this opportunity to recognize you for this wonderful accomplishment.
Congratulations. I'll read yours as well. Certificate of Excellence is hereby awarded to Ann Haywood-Leal in recognition of your accomplishments as an author and teacher and for serving as an inspiration for Waterford students. Thank you. We're all very proud you were in to read your work. Thank you.
Thank you, Ann.
Thank you very much.
I think you started here in Waterford in 2000? 2001?
Sure, I think it was before that. Well, maybe. I think it was before that.
Okay.
Asia was my first grader.
All right. Terrific. Well, congratulations, and thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you. It's always the best part of our board meetings. We love these achievements. Congratulations.
Have a good holiday season.
That takes us right to our consent agenda. Are there any comments, questions concerning the consent agenda? Hearing none, would somebody like to make a motion to accept the consent agenda to include the minutes of the November 13th regular meeting, the monthly expenditure report for November, and the food service financial report for October?
So moved.
Thank you, Ann. Second? Any comments? Hearing none? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? That motion carries. That takes us right to our reading and review of correspondence. Mr. Delaire?
I have one piece of correspondence to share with you that is one of our parents. I had a phone conversation with yesterday, and he shared with me a concern that he has around our social media policy, and I mentioned to him really the appropriate protocol to follow is to certainly share that with our policy committee, and our committees are always open to the public, and that I would let him know the next time the policy committee was going to have that discussion. He was more than welcome to be in attendance. So, in fact, I thought he might be here this evening just to share a concern that he had, but I just wanted to bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Belair. Is that it?
That's all I have.
The only correspondence I have, and we can talk about that, Sherry, you can probably bring us up to date when we get to the CAVE report, just materials from CAVE, and also, which is appropriate because we just worked with the coach evaluation policy, the high school, which association is this, the Voice of Education, Days Athletic and Performing Arts Activities, the American publication of the National Federation of the State High School Association. So I'll leave that in our library. I was able to go through just some good articles on just apropos of what we're doing with our policy right now. So I'll leave that over here for anyone that's interested in looking at it. And then, as I said, that was it for me except for the CAVE materials. So, takes us right to your report, Mr. Belair, on the summary report. Oh, excuse me, it's Kelly. I believe Kelly Shannon.
Yeah, but I'd like to start a little bit different in the order tonight. So, Kelly, if you could just hang in there for just a minute. I had the opportunity this morning, along with Dan Stewart, to meet with 8 of our religious leaders from the Waterford community, and we have planned a community vigil for this coming Sunday, December 23rd at 6 p.m. at the Waterford High School Auditorium. In honor and respect of the Newtown community and the students and staff that lost their lives. And we're looking at an hour ceremony with each of our churches represented, and I strongly encourage members of the community to join us. I'd also want to just highlight what we've been engaged in over the past week. And, you know, when I began tonight and talked about the heavy hearts, I can tell you, unlike any other time in my life, have I experienced anything quite like this. And I wanted to begin first by really acknowledging the district staff, our support staff, our administrators. They've worked admirably throughout the course of this week to really maintain a level of normalcy in all of our schools. I think the response has been very age appropriate, knowing that the kids range from a variety of stages of maturity and understanding, and certainly what we've been doing at the elementary school is really very age appropriate. And really, if our students needed to talk about it, we did that individually rather than as a class. A little bit different at the middle school and high school. And our school crisis teams have been there to support not only our students, but also our staff, as well as our families throughout Waterford. You know, you've heard me comment on this frequently. I think one of the greatest strengths in this community is really the partnership and relationship that we have with the Waterford Police Department. We began in earnest really around 10:30, 11 last Friday. And since that time, we've had a police presence in our schools. And Chief Pendleton and I think, have averaged 2 to 3 phone calls daily as well as nighttime and throughout the course of last weekend. And we'll continue to work very closely with them to maintain the safety in all of our schools. It's our highest priority. On Monday, I invited Kathleen to join us along with the Chief and Dan Stewart and other members in the town. We have a district-wide safety committee, and we came together immediately following Monday and really kind of talked about the protocols, things that work well for us, areas that we need to strengthen, and we've identified both some short-term and long-term strategies that we need to further research. And I really want to reassure all of our families, as well as the Board of Education, that we take safety very, very seriously, and it's a very high priority. The other thing that's important to keep in mind, we can't tell you everything about our safety because we also need to maintain some confidentiality. It's important that we not have everything public so that if indeed we ever dealt with an intruder, he or she wouldn't know everything about the strategies that we have in place for security. But I can tell you that all of our front doors are locked, and we have video cameras in 5 of our 6 schools, and as we move into the new high school, we'll have state-of-the-art security at that school. We have buzzers, we have video cameras, we ask people to identify, and although we don't have that at Waterford High School, the bell system was reactivated this week, and if you needed to enter the door, you needed to ring the bell, and the way in is with a member of our staff. We've had lockdown drills in all of our schools this fall, and following the holiday break, we will have a lockdown drill. And I think what's important for us is when we do that, as a public announcement so that the kids know. And then we'll continue to mix in those types of drills, but that's important. We'll continue to assess our school facility safety and address any shortcomings that we might have. Tomorrow morning at both our middle school and high school, we will participate in a statewide moment of silence at 9:30, and that's age appropriate for middle school and high school. We wouldn't be doing that at the elementary. We've been very respectful of the age of the kids and the conversation around the tragedy. Many parents and community members, and I think that's really strengthened us, have really reached out to thank us for the good work that we do with their kids. And I have to tell you that means more than anything to us to hear that from the community. And we'll have a chance to discuss this a little bit further in executive session with some of the strategies that we have in place. And just a reminder, the vigil is scheduled for Sunday at Waterford High School in the auditorium at 6 p.m.
Thank you, Mr. Miller, and I just would like to recognize you and all of the administrators and the teachers for the fine work with the police department and all the safety measures that were put into place this week and keeping the Board of Education fully apprised along the way. Thank you very much.
So we do have a report for tonight, and it's really to take a look at the class of 2012, our recent graduates, and you have a very dense report with a lot of good data. And I want to kind of take us back to one of our goals for John Eubanks during our summer retreat. So how do we know that we're a good school system? How do we know that we're successful? And this is one of the pieces of that puzzle to answer that question. And Kelly Sherman, who's our Director of Guidance at Waterford High School, is going to give you an overview and some of the highlights of this report, and then be available to answer any questions that you have. So thank you, Kelly.
Sure. I guess I'm going to start by saying I'm going to assume that a lot of us have things to do regarding the holiday season, and I'm going to try not to make it as long-winded as I did last time, but stop me on the way for any questions that you might have as I'm going on. And there's a lot of data, a lot of numbers to take in. I'm hoping that you maybe reviewed the data before we got here so that you could ask any questions that you may have. First, as Jerry said, why do we have this report? It really provides us with a story about our graduates, but not just our graduates, with the data of our students who have taken statewide assessments. It provides a platform for creating goals for our schools and helps us to create our work from here on in. It also helps us to know what our accomplishments are with our achievements academically, as well as providing college and career readiness for all of our students. And I think that's the most important thing, and that's really the focus here. The class of 2012, just in an overview, we had 220 students. I'm not going to read it all to you, but in an overview we had a slight decline in four-year schools. Obviously, economically and financially, students have been hit with the competitiveness and financial hardships of paying a lot of money for each year that they pursue post-secondary education. So they're looking for other pathways, which is great. Students are going the two-year route, they're going into career education, and they're taking a year off to work and collect some money to pay for their education after high school. So while we're taking another path, some students are taking another path, they are still pursuing four-year education, and we see that 131 students who graduated enrolled in four-year schools. Interestingly enough, 33% it went over to the outside of Connecticut, which is interesting, and I can just tell you why I think this might be, but we can ask more questions, which this data does provide. It gives us an opportunity to look at questions we may have to evaluate our achievements and where our graduates go. But outside of Connecticut, the New England schools, especially Connecticut, are very, very expensive. So students are saying, well, if I'm going to pay for college, I might as well look outside of Connecticut, outside of New England, and see what else there is to offer. And some students are reaching outward to see how they can save some money. 24% to two-year college or career education. We have students going to two-year technical schools, vocational career education such as Rio Academy, business schools, and hoping that after 2 years, for example, if the student wanted to go into radiology, they could get a certificate program for 2 years and then start working in a hospital, might pay for their 4-year education. So there's all different paths to take to get to where they want to go. And I think that's really important to know. Also, employment, as I said before, students are taking a year off to work. We had 3 students go into the military, and 25 students did go into the employment world. And then we had 4 undecided, of course. Our college entrance exams, and the reason I put this first, and Jerry and I discussed it, is because it is a path. So we need to look at the path that our students took before they went into post-secondary education. How did they get there? So you have to take entrance exams, and I defined them the last time we had this report. I'm not going to go through all of that again. It's in the report. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. But 171 graduates took the SAT, 78%. I think what we need to look at is we can compliment ourselves that we have a good number of students taking the SAT looking to go into postgraduate work, but why are more females taking the SAT than males? And I think along this whole line, if you go through the report, you can see just some gender issues pop up. And that sort of can set the groundwork for some of our future work, some of our analysis and our questions that we need to answer and look at, and how does this drive instruction for us? What do we have to look at? How can we raise the number of males taking SATs or the number of males taking APs? And I think you can see that as a line throughout this whole report. We are far above the state and national mean score in math, something to celebrate. Our math mean average has gone up, I believe it's 17 points over the last 2 years. Our writing scores have fallen slowly but consistently. We have to take a look at that. It brings up a question, why have our writing scores have fallen when we're doing so well with literacy? I'm hoping that our literacy work kicks in so that our reading scores go up. But we do see a national and state trend which is similar to Waterford High School. And while that can make us feel better, we still have to know why and figure out how we can push those scores up. If you don't know too much about the SAT, or if you didn't take the SAT, or if you did, you may remember that the SAT, the writing portion, 3/4, if not more, is mostly grammar and grammar usage, analyzing sentences and sentence structure, and we may have to look at our focus for writing. We've done a lot of process writing, and I think that's something that the staff would benefit to take a look at. So that's something we can learn from this report. One good thing is we ranked 10 out of our 24 districts in our DERG for a combined mean score. But if we peel some of the layers back, we can see that we did very well in math. I believe we were 7th out of the 24 in our DERG. But then if we look at our writing score, we fell a bit below. So again, we have to look at that and answer some questions as to why our writing scores have gone a little bit below. But we can certainly celebrate our math scores, huge increases, and 7 out of 24 is definitely something to celebrate. One thing that was very interesting to me is females versus males with math. Their average mean scores were similar for 500 range and above. Usually, typically, the males score a little bit better in the math area. The national trend and state trend, obviously, is that females do better on the SAT and standardized tests when it comes to writing and reading. However, we should be very proud that our females and males are doing very well in the math area. Any questions about that? There's a lot of information here. Okay. And by the way, our state ranks 5th in SAT participation in the nation. That was just an interesting little tidbit. We have a high participation in the state, but just remember, the more students that participate, sometimes the average mean goes down because more students with different backgrounds are participating in the SAT. Our subject test, again, another good celebration for this. Only 6 districts in our DERG had a higher number of graduates taking subject tests. And as you recall, the subject tests are used for more highly competitive colleges for entrance. We had 24 graduates, and while that looks like a very small number, if you put it into perspective, it's 11% of our graduates who took subject tests, and that has remained consistent, about 11%, so that's a good thing. ACTs, and as I explained before, the ACTs really originated from the Midwest, have moved towards New England. Increasing number of students taking the SATs and the number of test takers, I need to go forward, sorry about that. The number of test takers has risen over the last 5 years. But again, we see a gender issue here. Even though we only have 47 students taking the ACT, we have more female students taking it than males. We have to ask ourselves why, and as school counselors, our department as well as staff needs to take a look at that and talk to the boys in our high school and say, you know, this might be another test that might help you for college acceptances. Any questions about the ACT or subject tests? Okay. Dual enrollment. Again, what dual enrollment is, just as a reminder, it means that a student is in a class at the high school level and they're able to get college credit at the same time. And we have two types of dual enrollment, which kids and parents sometimes get a little bit confused with. You can be in an ECE, which is an early college experience UConn class, and you can receive actual college credit through UConn. That's one way of saving some money. It is a more rigorous class, and it goes right along with a college curriculum. The teachers that are teaching ECE classes have to be certified through, and they go up for training through UConn. The other is through advanced placement classes, and advanced placement classes do not ensure college credit. Not all colleges accept credit if you take an AP test. Sometimes they just place a student at a higher level than they would instead of giving credit. They just place them at a higher level, or you don't have to take an English class or a math class. So by that means, a student can save money taking an AP class. So we have two ways. We have 91 graduates receiving college credit in 2012. That's 41% of graduates. And I know, Mr. Taglianetti, you did have a question about one of the percentages, and we can get to that.
All right. Thank you.
156 students were enrolled in a 4-year college dual enrollment course. That's AP and ECE. Sometimes a course is an AP course and an ECE course. A student can be in that course and take it as an AP course, but not pay to have it as an ECE course. This is the first year, just as a reminder, that our students have paid for the AP classes on their own. Our district is not paying. It's very interesting, the data that we received and how that affected us. I think you might be pleasantly surprised. 67 students were enrolled in 2-year college. That's college and career pathways through Three Rivers. That does not mean the student has to attend Three Rivers, but by taking a series of coursework towards a career path, they can gain some college credit, and that's easily transferable, especially to Connecticut and Massachusetts state schools. Any questions about that? AP score highlights. Our AP participation, and this is where it's very interesting since the students are paying, the AP participation remains consistent. However, the number of tests that we gave fell slightly. So it's in your report, the actual numbers. But what I think what happened is the students said, well, we don't have to take all of our AP tests. We can pick and choose which AP tests. And Mr. Taglianetti, just to answer your question, it's not just seniors, so that percentage that you were questioning was total number of students taking the test, that percentage.
Okay. So, all right.
And I'll go over that specifically. 26.9% of seniors received a 3 or above. That's the graduating seniors. But juniors and seniors can be enrolled in AP classes. And so we administered 239 AP tests. Students chose, I believe, the ones they felt that they would do best on. They were taking, most of our AP students take more than one AP class. So I wrote down some of the statistics that you might be interested in. 92 students out of our 133 passed all of their APs that they took. That's a high percentage. 22 students passed some, and only 19 students didn't pass one. So that's something we can look at. Why? But sometimes students try an AP class. Maybe they take one, and that's good for them to try that rigor, but they may not pass the AP test, and that's okay. At least one of the indicators of college and career readiness is that you take an AP test, an AP course, and you pass it with a C or better. 114 out of those 133 received a 3 or above. So the total number of students taking tests, 86% received a 3 or above on their test. That's something to celebrate. They did very, very well. Only 24 students out of the total number of students in AP courses, only 24 of them did not take a course. So even though we made them pay for the test, I think that we can celebrate the fact that most of the students did take one. Even though they may not have needed it, they felt it was good for them. I know their instructors and the staff as well as the school counselors encouraged them to take the AP test, but it was up to them. So only 24 students did not take one. A little bit more information that I also thought would be interesting. The 2 classes, and you have to remember, some of the most highly competitive colleges do not take AP credit, which is very interesting because our most rigorous students are taking AP courses. Yale does not take AP credit in colleges that are highly competitive. So where we saw 33 students were in AP literature, all grade 12, only 17 students took that AP course. In European history, because typically schools wouldn't necessarily give credit for AP Euro, it's maybe give an elective credit or placement. So out of 30, only 5 of those students. So there's where we can look at some of those students and say maybe we could help them to encourage more AP testing in that area. But overall, I was very pleased at the outcome of the number of AP tests, even though they had to pay. Do you have any questions about that? Jody?
No, if they don't take the test, they still get credit with their high school, right? Or no?
Well, this is what happens, and we had a little bit of a discussion last year about that. Schools in the state, because I did talk to other guidance directors about how they did it and their philosophy and policy about their AP testing, what we ended up doing is the students took the AP test, the AP course. So it says AP on their transcript when they send it to apply to a school. If they don't take the AP test, some of the staff members wanted the AP removed, and some schools do that. If you don't take the AP test, you don't get the AP designation on your transcript. However, we decided to leave the AP designation on the transcript, showing that they went through the whole AP curriculum, which benefits them because it's not a false sense, because the students are going through the whole curriculum, and they have to pass the course. And they can see the grades that they received, a C or a D or a B or an A. So while they may not have taken the test, the consequence of that, to not taking the test, is not getting AP credit or placement. So instead of sort of punishing them twice, we left the AP designation on. If they didn't take the course, that was up to, the test, that was up to them. Does that answer your question?
I just want to make sure they were still getting credit. They were taking the course for the whole year.
Yes, the AP designation is still on the transcript. Any other questions about that, because that's a new policy? So you might ask yourself, where does that bring us to? And last year I went through sort of the historical nature of college and career readiness, which is a huge focus, not just at the high school level, but K through 12, and that's important to remember. Some of our new initiatives involve college and career readiness. Between 2007 and 2010, there was a huge push to align our state standards and our core standards with college and career readiness standards, and we've done that. Up until this point, we focused on our standards based on CMTs and CAT scores, and now we're raising the bar. Some of our core state standards are totally aligned with college and career readiness standards. The expectation is that every student be prepared to go into the world of work or into a 4-year school or post-secondary 2-year vocational school, all students. And so, as you can see, what's happened is post-secondary and secondary leaders have gotten together and talked about what indicators should we look at for how do we know if a student is college or career ready. And that's been a question that we've been working on. All of the checked marks up here show all of these indicators, and what do we do with the indicators? Well, now we could look at our data, look at our indicators, and look at the students that we currently have in the high school and ask ourselves, what needs do these students have to push the standards and raise the bar so that they are all college and career ready, but what are we going to put into place? As we analyze this data, we can look at our indicators and look at our next level of work, which hopefully I will define from here on in some of them. Graduates who are college and career ready, they possess knowledge and skills, 21st century skills. That would include communication skills, technological skills, interpersonal skills, rigorous academic achievement, how to work in a group, and thinking critically. These are all things that make a student college and career ready. Looking at the career paths that they may want to take, putting post-secondary goals into place, career and academic, all help a student to become college and career ready. Some of the responses nationally and statewide, we're starting to gather data. This report is one type of data that we are collecting using indicators of college and career readiness to drive instruction and aligning our curriculum and driving our instruction by looking at the data. One thing nationally also, many schools have put into place web-based programs that help us to explore career and academic areas for all students. It's a career, Naviance is the one that we have chosen. Many schools have put Naviance into place. There are other web-based tools that schools can use. But across the board nationally, schools are putting into place tools that can help track students, ensure that they're exploring career pathways, and developing their academic, personal, social, and career goals. School to Career Readiness Initiatives are also a way to prepare students for the world of work and post-secondary options. We have Naviance. We had 67 students last year participate in the college and career pathways. We have career and technical education called CTE classes. You may have heard them called CTE classes. We had 24 graduates receive college credit in 2012 through the CCP program. We have senior internship classes. 68 of our students last year participated in our senior internship, which gives some career exploration for these students. Our learning through service requirement, as you can see the amount of hours, we hope that the LTS goals that the students have go hand in hand sometimes with their career goals, or they explore an area and they say, geez, this really looks interesting, this might be a career pathway for me. One other initiative we put into place for school to career readiness is the ASVAB. Last year we had over 25 students, a big increase from 2011, participate in the ASVAB. That's the Armed Service Vocational Aptitude Battery. It's a wealth of knowledge for students regarding vocational career pathways that would suit them based on their outcome of the ASVAB. This year in the fall, we've already had 15 students take the ASVAB. We just got the results back. It's an excellent test, and we hope more students take advantage of it. And student success plans, which I'll be talking about in a little bit, the implementation begins this year. It's a law that's been passed, and we'll get to that. And that's a big initiative that we're going to be talking about. How will we assess our college and career readiness of our graduates? Well, nationally, we're looking at post-secondary data from the National Clearinghouse, because as of right now, it's very difficult to know. A student can say they matriculated into a college, a post-secondary school, but we don't know what happens after they leave us. And so we're still working on tracking these students postgraduate and looking at whether or not they required remedial coursework, whether or not we prepared them well for the world of work or a four-year school or technical school, and what the outcome is. And this is something that statewide, nationally, and Waterford High School will be working on, trying to track those students. Student success planning. Well, what happened was the state and national educators nationally asked, well, how can we ensure that each student has a plan? It doesn't matter if they're going to a four-year highly competitive school, if they're going to go to a vocational school, if they're going to go into a career, if they're going to work. All students need to have a plan. So how can we ensure that that happens? In 2011, July 8th, the state, I don't know if you're familiar with this, passed a law that all districts and all schools have to have a plan that would be implemented in September of this year. At least one portion of the plan should be implemented, so that each student is planning their career, academic, social, emotional, physical goals. All of those have to be addressed for each student. It's a big undertaking, but the core of that is the school counseling department and our curriculum, and then it works outward to other staff members that will be working eventually with the students to help develop these plans. These are individualized plans, and they're starting to begin to be individualized and initiated by the student. The student will be completing goals. We'll be having individualized meetings with the students and setting up their goals, both academic and career goals. We do some of this through Naviance, but we're hoping in the future we might be doing some of this through our advisory program. And this is not just a high school initiative, this is 6 through 12. So that's important to remember. These are SSPs, Student Success Plans, will be implemented 6 through 12. So a student will start in 6th grade with career exploration, academic development, personal, social, and physical development, and work right through grade 12 with these plans. SSPs foster all of this, 21st century skills, goal setting for academic growth, career exploration, and personal growth. And the state asks us to document what we do with the students, and that's a big undertaking. So not only can we just say, oh yeah, we talked to the student about what they'd like to be, what they'd like to do, we have to document this. We have to document in their student success plan their goals, their SMART goals, their career exploration, have them write reflections about, it can be about individualized planning for their academics, or it can be personal social. An advisory teacher might do a conflict resolution lesson, and that would be documented through a reflection. So we have a broad range of flexibility of how we can implement our SSPs, and we've already started this year to do that. Our success plans build on 3 core areas: academic, career, social, emotional, and physical development. And within each category, all of these components can be developed. And what are we doing already? We're using Naviance to track the student's SSP. That's the first part of our implementation process. The school counselors started writing their school counseling curriculum this year over the summer, and we're continuing to do that. And we're implementing SSP development right into our school counseling curriculum. And our future goals, hopefully with the use of this data in this report, we'll use data to inform areas of strength. It'll drive instruction already. The English department, it's nice to hear that they're taking AP test items and incorporating them into their their curriculum and their CFAs, common formative assessments. They're taking AP test-like items to ensure that students have a taste of what it would be like in an AP course, and to measure their college and career readiness. We're gathering post-secondary data. We're modifying programming to ensure that the student needs based on the data are being met through our goals. And I think that's really the crux of the report, to ensure that that happens. And we are incorporating college and career readiness standards into future SLOs through our new SEED evaluation program. There's a lot of data in here that can be incorporated into student learning objectives that all staff can participate in. Do you have any questions? There's a lot of information I just got out.
I'd just like to say that you're very comprehensive and you give such a thorough, you've answered many of my questions that I had. It's just this SSP, the student, this is it's very ambitious and rigorous, and I hope the state's going to allow a little time, because I can't see this. It's going to take an extended period of time, I would think.
And I'll make you feel a little bit better. The state has done a lot of professional development. All they're asking, and they're not telling us how to do the SSP work, the implementation, which is good and bad. They're allowing us to develop the SSP that suits the needs of our district and for our own students. We can implement it in a variety of ways. We can decide what fits our high school and our middle school. But what they're asking us to do is just to implement one piece of it this year, okay? So we really have already done that through the school counseling program, ensuring that students have individualized meetings to go over career development and through Naviance and career exploration. They're not asking us to do the entire thing in 1 year. They're being very flexible about that.
We also align this with our curriculum renewal process, so the school counselors have been engaged in this. This is the second year, and it's 6 through 12, and they work very well together.
Thank you. Any other questions that I can answer?
The student success plan, is that going to be implemented electronically?
Yes. The hope is that, of course, the state didn't have specific answers. But we're hoping, and all districts are doing it in different ways. We're hoping to do the entire thing electronically, but we do have some limitations, of course, because not all, if we wanted, for example, all of our students to do a lesson on support systems that are available to you, and maybe the advisory teachers were going to take on that lesson that day, or the school counselors. All students don't have a laptop in front of them to maybe write a reflection to document that that lesson occurred. So what we'll be doing this year is a combination of two things: electronic portfolio through Naviance, and Naviance actually has a tracking system built based on the SSPs and the structure of SSPs specifically, so that we can track students, set up tasks, and ensure that each student's doing that, and the student can do the task and click right on Naviance that that's been completed. But if we do something through advisory as a whole school, we're going to have to do a hard copy right now, and we could put them in notebooks. There's a variety of ways to document that. And as we have some more advantages technology, through the use of technology, maybe wireless, maybe tablets. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can do it.
The new Waterford High School.
Yes, exactly. We can set up electronic portfolios to document the SSP work.
I'm just trying to figure out how to streamline it
I know.
for the school administration.
What's nice is on Naviance you can upload documents. We can't get all students on Naviance at one time in the school, so the things that we do separately, where we take them into the classroom and do tasks with them individually, maybe by grade level, one block at a time, then we can upload documents and document it electronically like that. The only thing the state has been unable to answer a question about is if a student transfers from one district to another. We're doing it one way, Stonington's doing it another way, Griswold's doing it another way, and if a student transfers in, you can download all of the information off of Naviance and bring it with you to the next district, but there's no one standardized way to document the SSPs at this point in time. I would guess in the future something might come about that would allow us to do that. That would make sense, but right now we're just sort of moving our way through this new implementation, and it's going to be a positive. I think it's going to be very positive, because I think it's good. All students are individuals, and they really need to look at their pathways, from their eyes. So.
The other thing I would say is the discussion that we had about what's the metric for success. I mean, we are now very nicely tracking historically 5 years back, and I think typically the scores have always kind of floated, whether it be math or writing skills, they all kind of floated within a band. Okay, and we tend to compare them with, well, as it says here, state and national, DERG. But my point has always been is the fact that, which in this case math, 523. The highest it's been in a few years. Are we satisfied with that? What do we think? How do we measure success? Whether it's the absolute number or a percentage ranking in the DERG, some other way. Otherwise the numbers just like I say, they just kind of float within a band, and we tend to say, well, gee, we're higher than last year, and maybe the next year we're not higher than this year.
You're right. They have floated a lot. Math has taken a big leap, or if we have a big dip, we sort of see that out of bounds. But I think educators are starting to say, okay, that's what the college and career readiness standards are. So we do have, if you look under, in the report, under SATs and APs, there are specific numbers for college and career readiness, and I think that's a start to answer your question. That's the beginning. Because I think everybody has that same question. What's the standard for 11th and 12th grade? We have our CAP standards, we have our CMP standards, but what about 11th and 12th grade? Where do we go from here? And I think the college and career readiness standards is a start to answer your question.
Yeah. You say math went up substantial, but I can go back a year, a little bit earlier, and we're actually down from that.
Right.
So, it's hard to look at these numbers and say we should be happy about this, because we have no thresholds that we have set or goals that we have set.
Well, the other important factor is you're talking about a different group of students. So you're not tracking the same group of students. Where you have a common measuring stick, is that this is the same test that all students in Connecticut throughout the country take, just as they will with Common Core. So that would be a different
So
measure.
then the reference could be a percentage of ranking in the DIRG. That our goal is, we're successful if we're in the top quartile of the DIRG, whether that's the right threshold or not.
And the other difficult piece is you have the standardized college and career readiness benchmark for SAT and ACT. However, is it fair to say that all students have to take those tests? And so you have that measure for a percentage of students, but the other piece is career readiness. What's the measure for that? I think we're still discovering that and trying to work towards that.
Jody?
I just have a comment, I guess. I really think you're looking, the goals are really for the students academically, but I've always been concerned about the students personally, when they're out on their own. Do you have a way of tracking that to see if they succeeded on being on their own? If they can, manage a budget, how they do with charge cards, with their food cards with college?
We've had a lot of discussion about that.
I think that's important too.
Part of the SSP, while it doesn't venture too far from the secondary level, part of the SSP, the personal, social, and physical part of it,
I'm happy to see
and
that there.
that actually, they're going to expect maybe like health teachers to address some things. They're going to expect our staff to, and sometime in the future, to have lessons maybe on personal finance or time management. And those are the types of things that would fall under that category and then would have to be documented. I mean, obviously we can't do 700 lessons with all students, but we have to pick and choose. That's what actually part of our school counseling curriculum rewrite is, picking out what we feel should be the goals based on our school counseling standards, and then what pieces fit into the SSP, and what do we want.
Right, living skills classes, I think is very,
I agree with you, definitely.
thank you. And this is a very important report.
Thank you.
Kelly, thank you very much. The report was very comprehensive, as I said, and we'll look forward to hearing your next report. We want to thank you because you're helping the Board of Education meet some of its goals with this fine report, so we appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
That will bring us to the...
So I wanted to give you a little snapshot as to where we are in the budget development process for fiscal year 14. So we're looking at releasing the budget to you on January 2nd. We'll deliver it to your home. We've had two very beneficial and fruitful workshops with our administrative team just prior to the Thanksgiving break. And, with anything, especially with a budget, you just really need to realize it's a very fluid process. We're still wrestling with a few loose ends. We're really looking closely at the healthcare projections. There's new information that we continually receive, and I'll share a couple of pieces of new information. So we learned recently that in the area of special education, we received excess cost grants. Well, we've been told that we should anticipate a 10% reduction. So that is certainly being factored into the work that we're doing. We're also continuing to explore some new opportunities. We're continuing to look at some regional opportunities with transportation, and that probably will come together a little bit later in the budget development process, but we don't finally settle really until May. But the budget will be needs-based as well as data-driven. We're certainly going to benefit from a number of the cost-saving measures that we've put in place. The renegotiation of our contracts, the rebidding of health insurance, the institution of a high deductible health plan with the HSA, the rebidding we did a year ago of student transportation. Certainly moving to a new high school, we're going to have the opportunity to reduce our dependence on fuel oil. Hip hip hooray, because that's been such a driver. And really the work that we did to rebid our generation costs with electricity, as you know with geothermal, you increase your use of electricity and decrease your use of fuel. So the work we did in locking in for 3 years I think is really going to pay off. We've joined with our neighbors in a number of cooperative opportunities, the investment that this town and board made in a very robust fiber optic system throughout the town is definitely reaping benefits when it comes to communication and our phone bill. We've instituted a number of the in-district special education programs, so rather than spending some significant dollars in tuition, having our students educated right here is a real help. We have some fluctuations in enrollment for next year, and we've worked very hard with the reassignment and reallocation of staffing positions, but being very mindful of our class size guidelines. So the areas that we're still researching at this point relate to the health insurance cooperative. Anthem right now is pricing out what the health insurance costs may be for about eight area towns that are interested in forming a cooperative. So we're hoping to hear that news soon after the new year. We're continuing to identify and explore some additional in-district special ed programs, as well as some regional transportation opportunities with East Lyme and New London, our two contiguous neighbors. One of the discussions that I want us to have during the budget process is the tuition area. We're looking at a significant increase in tuition, somewhere over in the mid-20s. Here in Connecticut, it's a choice state, so families have the opportunity to select where they'd like to send their students to. And then the hometown pays the tuition bill. We are facing some significant rate increases in tuition from those area choices. We need to meet that obligation. But one of the things that legally we're not obligated to do is to provide transportation, and currently we do. And so as we get into the budget workshops, that's one of the areas that I'd like us to spend some time in. We're looking at some significant increases in a couple of those opportunities for our students. Some of the good news, as we look at the salary account, we're looking at less than a 2% increase, and that's really due to the negotiation process that we were engaged in. The rebidding of transportation will come in under a % increase. Right now, we're projecting a decrease in some of the employee benefits, again, due to some of the measures that we've taken. With the opening of a new high school, we'll be able to reduce some of the equipment repair and maintenance because we're looking at one-year warranties. So as we look at those accounts, we're going to see some very favorable numbers, but we need to realize it's for 1 year. But at the same time, we'll take anything that we can get. So I think that's important to keep in mind. But we'll be working next week after the holiday, and we'll have the budget ready for you on January 2nd. So a lot of good work is going into it. We've had a few surprises, but also a lot of great work that's gone into it.
And Mr. Velio, would you just remind the board and the public the two budget workshops that we're going to be doing in January, those dates?
January 10th is Thursday evening, January 17th. We have a snow date of January 22nd. That's a Tuesday after the Martin Luther King holiday. If either of those first 2 days, the 10th or the 17th, get canceled due to inclement weather. As we did a year ago, we've invited selected RTM members as well as Board of Finance to our workshops, and my hope is we'll have a great turnout so that we can all be engaged in the process as we work to develop a budget that really supports education here in Waterford.
It's important that we hear from everyone and include them in the process. So we'll look forward to receiving it, on the 3rd, did you say?
And I appreciate being able to get it to you after the holiday because there's just too many unknowns that we're trying to nail down so that we can give you as close to the picture as possible.
Great. Thank you for all that work. And can you now bring us to our administrator?
We have 2 vacancies that we've posted in the past week. One is Director of Finance, and the second relates to Waterford High School. And I placed it here in your packet a timeline related to the high school search. And that's now advertised publicly. We've got it out on a number of websites. And I had the opportunity to meet with the high school faculty Tuesday this week, and shared with them that we posted the position. ask for volunteers to join the search committee, and I've received a number of responses from staff. And as we did with the Clark Lane Middle School vacancy, we will have a search committee comprised of parents, staff, administrators, and students. And we'll be looking at, throughout the course of the month of January, working through that process. We're looking at a closing date at the end of January, January 31st. During February, we'll conduct some interviews. That interview process will go through the interview team as well as the full administrative team, and then looking at site visits for folks that we're very excited about. And then I think we have a March 21st date. I'm doing this from memory. To meet with the board. And then our hope is by the end of March, at our March board meeting, that we're able to appoint a new high school principal. Looking at by the early part, middle of May, having that appointment, so he or she would be able to work alongside of John Macrino for the final month of the school year and learn from him.
I think it was March 27th.
March 27th. And you'll see that there's a date in there where the full board is engaged in the interview process. And we'll be doing a number of focus groups. We'll be meeting with the entire high school staff during the month of January. We'll have an online survey for parents, students, and at one of our board meetings in January, I'd like us to come in a half hour early and do a focus group with the board and get your input, looking at desired traits, qualifications, the things that we're very proud of and areas that we want to continue to strengthen at the high school level.
Thank you. If I may, just for the moment, we're very fortunate to have Mr. Macrino with us, and also to have him as we go out for the new principal search, that he will be there to guide them, and we're grateful for him to be here with us. Thank you. That brings you to the next. We asked to have an update on the pilot evaluation.
If you recall, I think Craig and I shared this with you in October, maybe. And so we're really underway, aren't we, team? And all of our staff in the new evaluation plan have set their goals. We've been engaged in both informal and formal observations, and we're gradually approaching the mid-year point in January. I think there have been a number of positives. At the same time, with anything new, I would also say to you that there's a great deal of work involved in this, and we've been able to share quite a bit of our experience with area administrators as well as with the commissioner. 2 weeks ago, I had a chance to meet with him and share what I've heard from the staff here in Waterford, and hopefully our good advice will be taken under consideration. We're also working with the School of Education for Yukon and in the district, interviewing teachers as well as administrators. So a lot of input and information is being gathered. And I just wanted to let you know that Craig, along with 3 of our administrators, Don and Pat and Jim, were part of a roundtable discussion over a project where we put 70, 75 people in attendance, and lots and lots of compliments with our team sharing the experience, what they're learning, suggestions for improvement, and both Craig and I heard from many other districts just complimenting the work that Waterford's doing with the pilot and the help and the guidance that they're sharing with other communities. So that's an update, and I think, John, you had pushed us to really kind of keep you informed along the way.
You know, I mean, certainly don't know or have access to, or direct access to this process and how it's going. I've heard that 3 schools, 3 out of the 10 have dropped out. 3 of the 10 that volunteered to participate like we did have dropped out. Do you know anything about that?
I'm aware of one.
One?
Could be more.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm aware of.
Looking back to some of the notes from whenever that meeting was, October. That there was a rather extensive webinar and tests that administrators had to complete. Has everybody completed that and passed those
We've
tests?
been working on that process diligently.
So the answer is no. We're it's still in
It's ongoing, yeah.
work in progress. And I also remember that there were a number of evaluations, formal and informal, each requiring
Informal, free, informal.
three formal, three informal, and that each one required obviously a write-up to document the results of that.
Observation.
Right, and we're halfway through the school year, and I don't know if, in a perfect world, whether they would actually be linear, i.e., if we're halfway through, we would have completed half of them, or whether they're, biased to one end of the school year or the other. So are we on schedule for completing all of those?
We're on a Waterford schedule. Again, piloting, we have some leeway, and so what we've done is make sure that we do the goal-setting conferences with Fidelity, and so we completed those by Thanksgiving time, I think just before Thanksgiving. We've initiated the observations, and I would say we're in the first round of observations. We're a little bit more than halfway through.
Yeah. So instead of doing 6, we do 4 as part of the pilot, and the result is, hey, this is pretty onerous, and that's why we only did 4. I mean, that's part of the feedback that we would give. At what point do you actually give feedback to the state? When do you do it at the end of the year, or?
It's been ongoing.
Ongoing. Yeah. And the only reason I'm concerned about this is because although I was very much in favor of us being a pilot project in the town, because again, I think that it's valuable for us to participate rather than have something dumped on us that we didn't have a voice in. The whole thing sounded very onerous, and the concern was, and still is, what's the collateral damage on the administrators now taking on what appeared to be a rather lengthy and detailed process that we didn't have before, and we all know they don't have any spare time. The thing I'd be very concerned about is what I would call the collateral damage. What else is not getting done or is not getting done as well because we have to do this, and that all has to go back in the feedback. So it's something that I was in favor of, but very concerned of also. So, I would...
It's interesting, John, this is a piece of legislation, and all 169 communities will be implementing it come July 1st. And so being part of the pilot, my hope is that we can shape the very best of it and then offer suggestions for improvement, and we have not been bashful. But there's been some real positives as well.
Jody?
No, I wasn't in favor of it, actually. I heard all the about it. I don't see how the administrators have enough time to do it all, plus do their own work. We're paying them to be administrators in Washington, not to have to work with the state. I think it's taking up a lot of their time. That's my opinion. I like John's idea of maybe cutting it down to 4. I think 6 is really a lot to ask. Plus what we can...
Yeah, I don't know if it's a lot. It sure sounded like a lot when you've got that many that we have to do. I mean, in my profession, 1 a year was...
Well, the challenge is the way it's put together right now is 100% of the staff all in. And I think there's a better way to do it.
Yeah. Well, I would certainly urge you to not be bashful about your feedback.
Bashful.
I'm not looking for any additional work, but at the end, when we do finalize all the work that you've done, would be nice, and very short little synopsis if you might be able to just show us, because I think the state allowed you to use the model that they had prepared. Is that correct? Right. So it would be interesting from a board standpoint if you might just give us a little sketch of what of those major areas that we were able to contribute, so perhaps helping the other districts that were not part of the pilot. And Jody and John said it well. Sometimes we had to make that decision very quickly. I remember it was in that one evening, and we thought it was, as John said, probably the best strategy to take so we'd have a voice in how it was shaped. Just it's difficult when you're part of the pilot. I know it's a lot of extra work, so we're very grateful for that.
I would just ask that we have another update, perhaps, at the May Board of Ed meeting.
By then.
Okay, I mean,
And I think
Short
eventually,
one.
when NEAG releases their report from across the state, we'll share that with you as well.
yeah, I mean, I'd like to know what feedback is going to go back.
Now, that plan has to be implemented starting next year for the other, for
It does.
districts,
Yeah.
right? So it's not that much time.
Sorry, one other question, is the Federation part of the feedback?
Oh, very much so. I mean,
What goes into Waterford's feedback report, however it goes back?
teachers have been interviewed in each of the schools.
I've also been contacted through AFT, and I've been interviewed by a different person than the as to feedback as far as total students, and I'll be presenting at AFT on December 27th.
Good.
Thank you. We'll wait for that next update.
And just a couple of other things. I just wanted to highlight the work of the Clark Lane Middle School students around the conference room here, and certainly something that's very appropriate is we stand for you're right behind John. And you probably noticed when you came up to the second floor tonight that all of the student artwork has disappeared. Well, it's all at a show, and we do feel kind of empty up here, but it's great to have these great samples of student work from Clark Lane Middle School. I also just wanted to highlight publicly, and I shared it with the board, and I know that Paul Petrone has run an article in the Patch, but we have received approval as a renovation is new with the older sections of the high school that are remaining, and that is terrific. We will certainly be entitled for additional reimbursement on the construction project later on in the process, and that will result in less town debt for the construction of the high school project. That's all I had.
Good. Thank you. It takes us right to our committee and other reports, and I think our first one will be from our student that is with us this evening, Ms. Kristen Hanner. Did I pronounce your name properly?
Yes.
Thank you. Would you like to give us an update from the high school? Welcome.
Thank you.
Good evening. So I'd like to start off by just saying the tone of Waterford High School regarding the Newtown tragedy last week is very mournful, sympathetic, compassionate, and slightly anxious. But overall, I think that everybody took it quite well, and we're really trying to keep like a level-headed approach to how we serve those people affected by that. And we have a lot of gestures at Waterford, and we are doing things like selling candy canes. I know one class is selling candy canes to raise money to donate to Newtown. We are putting together snowflakes designed by students to put up to create sort of a more cheerful environment for the students in Newtown. And I know Ms. Perazzotti, one of our teachers, is arranging candy choo-choo trains to give to some students to just cheer them up for the holidays a bit. And also, on a lighter note, the students are very excited to enter the new school coming in April. We're really looking forward to getting sort of a new change of scenery and having a fresh outlook. Student Council is active in putting together the reindeer games, which is sort of a pep rally, exciting experience for the students at Waterford. And that will be tomorrow during advisory. We put together holiday-themed activities and games for the students who everybody can get involved with that, and that's really exciting for everybody. And that's paired with an ugly sweater day, where the students are invited to wear their ugliest Christmas sweaters and come to school, and it's a very exciting time for us right before we leave for the holiday break. We also just finished sponsoring an anonymous family for the Waterford Youth Service Bureau, for whom we purchased a whole ton of presents for at Walmart, and we wrapped them
on Tuesday and sent them off to Waterford Youth Service Bureau for those kids to have a little bit of a better Christmas this year. So we're really excited about that. Every year we like to adopt a family to do that for, because it just makes us feel a little bit better when we are opening our own presents on Christmas morning. We also do the same for the New London Women's Shelter. We buy all types of presents for kids and parents there, like household items that they wouldn't get normally when they're at the women's shelter. So we don't wrap those. We bring them as sort of like a Santa's helper kind of a thing to their Christmas party annually. And finally, for Student Council, the Winter Ball is coming up in January, and we're really excited about that because we haven't had a dance since homecoming, so that's always an exciting time. Ski Club actually had our first blood drive of the year last Monday, but unfortunately, due to the climate in the old gym, it was a little bit cold, like 30 degrees, because the heating, I think, was disconnected to the old gym, right? So, yeah, so extracting blood was a little bit more of a challenge. So we're hoping.
They are excited about the new high school.
Yes, they're really excited. But we had an overwhelming response about students who were really excited to reach out to the cause, the American Red Cross, and really get involved with donating blood. And I look forward to becoming 17 so I can do that as well. So we scheduled more for February and May to have another couple of blood drives in which other students can get involved and donate. Tea Club also just finished up a canned food drive. We distributed large paper bags to every advisory, and the classes would donate canned goods to go to the food pantry. And finally, for Tea Club, we are doing a bell ringing at Waterford Crystal Mall to raise money, just like you see at every other store. So the students will be able to get involved with that. Another club that is active in the community is DECA. So that is the Business and Distributive Education Council, I guess you could say, for the school. And we are participating in the Muscular Dystrophy Walk at Foxwoods in February. So we're all really looking forward to that. And prior to that, we are hosting a family bowling night for students in the community to come and get active and raise money for our team for the Muscular Dystrophy Walk. And we are also opened our school store, so that helps with the business and distributive education for the students involved in DECA. So that's something that both the people who work it and the people who purchase from it really enjoy to do. The class of 2014, class that I'm president of, is currently planning a pasta dinner for January 16th, so clear your calendars. That's open for the entire community, so students and teachers will be cooking and serving and cleaning up for that event, and we're really excited. It's going to be a mixed match pasta bash, so you get to choose your favorite kind of pasta and sauce, and we hope that we'll see you all there. We're really excited to be raising money for our proms and graduation, so that is something that we're really looking forward to. We are also creating a spring fling, which is not something that we usually do at Waterford because we don't want to have too many dances in a year. However, this year due to construction, we weren't able to host our back-to-school dance, which was a little bit disappointing for the students because, you know, coming back to school, you get excited for that, so we had to wait for homecoming. So we're able to host a spring fling this year, and that will be falling right in May, we switched it to the first week of April, right after we get back from our vacation. So we're all really looking forward to that, and considering maybe having it on the courtyard, yeah, which would be a little
surprise.
Oh, he knows, we already sent in the forms. And we are also really looking forward to prom, for which I am I'm in driver's ed right now. Little personal note. So I saw a presentation that a public speaker gave about drinking and driving, and he gave it to a class of, an auditorium full of high school juniors and seniors right before their prom. So I was thinking about maybe getting something together right before junior prom, which would be right before senior prom, which would be before graduation in summer, to have maybe a public speaker to come in and talk to our students about that, because it's something that's obviously really concerning. We don't want to lose any of our classmates due to something so preventable, so I think that would be something that we can look into. So that still has to have some investigation. Another exciting thing that is coming up soon is the inaugural address. I myself am attending that, and it's where a group of students, this is the first time I think that Waterford has done that, the civics teachers are putting this together. So a group of students are taking a bus down to D.C. for the weekend of the inaugural address, and we get to go sightseeing and stay over for a couple of nights. And upon our arrival, we get to have midterms. So everybody in the school is really anticipating midterms right now, for better or for worse. We're getting our preparation ready, and we are looking forward to get some high scores. So, yeah, that pretty much wraps up everything. Thank you.
Thank you, Kristen. You're a very good spokesperson for your class and very informative. Thank you. Straightened up, huh?
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any committee reports from board members?
Kathleen, not a committee report, but as you indicated earlier, at the CAPS conference in November, we did receive a leadership award, as we do, as we have in previous years. And so I was there to receive that on behalf of the board, and had a picture taken with the commissioner, which you've probably seen in the Cave newspaper. And I do have the award, but unfortunately I left it at home tonight, so I will bring it in.
Wall space for it.
Yeah.
I brought the Cave newsletter to show Sherry receiving. Thought I had that one. And Lydia re-elected, so in case you didn't see it, I'll leave it here. Sherry receiving the award for us. Thank you, Sherry, for that. Any other reports? Just quickly, Jody and Mr. Belair attended the Friendship School meeting the other day, and you may help me with we received the new calendar and met the new director, Dr. Eileen Halley at ForLearn, and will be will she be chairing this next year, I would think, at the governance board. And I want to recognize Mr. Belair and all of the work he put into trying to fit in a schedule that would meet the needs, so that we would try to help with the Friendship School and maintain more of our kindergarten students. You may want to highlight that a little bit. That I know you put a tremendous amount of work. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like it will.
Yeah, one of the opportunities that we saw as we were going through the budget process a year ago was, could we try to align the Friendship School schedule with our elementary schedules? And after a great deal of work, we can't. We can make the morning work, the afternoon is a real challenge. But one of the things that we are going to really try to implement is that Wednesday at the Friendship School will be an all-day, very much like the Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday schedule. And so we are going to work closely with New London to align the transportation on that day to work. But a great deal of work went into it, and at the end of the day, it's really not best for students, and that really seems to be the driving force. And so we put a lot of good time into it. It was something we thought might make a difference, and by going through the exercise, we realized we didn't. So, but we gave it a good shot.
Right. Thank you for all that work. The other committee report is the policy committee did meet, consolidated a couple of meetings, and you'll hear about those policies coming up in a few minutes. So that is on schedule. I know Mr. Powers has done a great job putting a calendar together. I noticed on the flip side you had the rest of the meetings, but we can talk about that later. If there, Jody, you didn't have, you didn't raise your hand. I'm sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Our Youth Service Bureau meeting this month was at the Youth Service Bureau last Monday, and they had an open house. And it was amazing how generous our town is, and our students and our faculty. And it was just, Paul, thank you for putting that in the patch. It was just really, really good. 104 families, I think there was 104 families. There's lots of families that got it the last minute. But Youth Service Bureau is doing a great job. Also, Wade, the Christine grant for the Waterford Alcohol and Drug Education Program is up. And we started working on a new logic model, which we have to submit, and hopefully we'll be able to get the funding back, $100,000 for 5 years. And that would be great to let the junior and senior class know that they could probably work with Wade and they could bring speakers in, because Christine has a whole list of people that they could bring in. And that's it for Youth Service Bureau. Our school building committee, as Jerry said, the high school is on schedule, and we'll be able to move it in April. I attended the first home basketball game that I was able to go to last night, and I can't get over how the lobby looks at the high school now, and our concession stand is nice. We have cabinets and a new calendar and everything, and it was just so nice to see all different ages there. And last night was the youth cheerleaders, and we saw them practicing downstairs in the hallway. And it was just such a nice family night, and I think we needed that after everything that's been going on. We're very lucky. Very lucky. Great. You said everything good. Good early childhood.
Thank you, Jody. If there are no other committee reports, we can move to our next item, which would be the first reading of several policies. And Mr. Powers, would you like to inform the board about the first one, which is a new policy?
Sure, thank you. In your board packet, we didn't send out the exact one, so it's your table today. The few corrections were basically we moved up in the purpose one of the paragraphs a little higher. Under the standards of communication, we switched out in the last sentence the board to the administration, and on the back page under the fifth bullet, we removed the word or. So that's, albeit minor, I wanted to ensure that we had the correct policy for first reading, which is on civility, respect, and communication. Obviously, we do have a very respectful community, and this policy basically just validates that and is a form of communication to ensure that if any staff member feels like they want to talk about an issue, that they can go through administration and then ultimately to HR. And so really that's the impetus for this policy here, and I'll be happy to address any questions you might have.
We thought it was it's a new policy, but we thought it made sense. And one positive feature to this that we hadn't thought about, and which was good for all of us lately, is not to violate any of the different policies, the regulation. It kind of reminds you to just keep reviewing your policy manuals and keeping up with all of our different, because there are cumbersome. There are quite a few of them. So this kind of reinforces that too. Thank you.
So this is for your first reading. We will bring it back again in January for approval.
Are there any questions or comments from the board? Okay, I think that takes you to the next
The next policy is around coaching evaluations, and where we've had a policy in the past, you can see we've enhanced it with some new legislation, basically giving coaches similar tenured rights after 3 years in the position. And so what we want to ensure is that we have the right people working for us, and again, in Waterford we don't have that problem historically, but it's a great enhancement. We've also enhanced our evaluation. So we've always evaluated our coaches. The regulation sheet is the coaching evaluation, which should be administered to all coaches, head and assistants. Dave Souza was instrumental in helping us with this evaluation tool, working through the CIAC, and then folding it in for legal review with our law firm. And what you have here, I think, is just a great evaluation tool. A question that came up at a policy committee around possibly having some student input via surveys. Dave is very happy to research that, and he's going to be going to the league to find that some school systems have used it. He's going to look at those evaluation tools, and his thought would be for the end of this year to pilot it with seniors to see how it goes, and then to expand that in future years. So again, I'll be happy to address any questions you might have with this policy.
Well, just so the board is aware that both Mr. Sousa and Mr. Macrino attended the policy committee meetings and answered any questions that the policy committee asked of them, and the question on the input from the students kind of went along with as giving the coaches in the evaluation piece a little bit of symmetry with the teacher evaluation. There was a little input from students, so the policy committee thought that might be something worthwhile if it could be accomplished. We also thought the evaluation tool that Mr. Powers just mentioned was improved upon from our former
Our current system.
Right, the current one. So I'd like to open up if the board has, this again is the first reading, so you'll have time to look it over. If you have any other questions or comments, you can bring it back to the second reading. No action is required tonight, but if you have any questions, don't hesitate. John?
I think the feedback that will be solicited from players on teams would be very valuable. So I'm hoping that what Dave finds out is positive, and I like the idea of piloting it. What I would like to throw out there to you and for Dave to consider, and I don't know how you do this, so it's one of these, I don't know how you do it, and that is there are some students that refuse to play for a certain coach, so they're not on the team, and yet they might have valuable input as valuable as a player on the team. So I don't know how you do that. That might be something that you can discuss with Dave. You understand my
I do understand your question, John, and that's great. And let me bring that back to our athletic director, and let's look at that. Because really, we just want to have the best environment for our students and have the most productive teams, and the coaches are an integral part of that. Around it, and so any way we can improve the system through either evaluation or just the program, we're looking for. So I do understand your question, but I don't have any immediate answer.
I don't know how you go find those kids, but I mean, I've talked to a lot of students about a lot of coaches, and there are students that love their coaches, and there are students that absolutely would refuse to play for that particular coach, and their input might be quite valuable. Because otherwise it sort of becomes a closed society.
Thank you, John. We'll go back. Before we take a motion to go into executive, we have one policy that we're actually eliminating. We believe that the policy committee, Chris, Mr. Powers, you may wish to say about the construction while we're doing that.
Yeah, we created this policy back in '03, and it was really in the start of all of our new school construction. And as you recall, we've had several 10-year enrollment studies which were critical in the development of our elementary schools, in the development of our middle school renovation, our high school, and the Friendship School, that really warranted this annual kind of update. With the onset of the high school being completed, we closely monitor, as Jerry's mentioned, enrollment always. But we don't see the need to extend town's money on a regular basis for outside 10-year enrollment projections on such a regular basis. And so with that being said, we're looking to have the board sort of sunset by removing this policy. And it doesn't mean that we won't look at enrollment. We will. And it doesn't preclude us from ever going out to look at a study if we think that we need to because of other developments in town. But as a policy, I don't think we have to do this on such a regular basis as it's so written.
Well, and the board gets its enrollment data every fall, and then we make adjustments if we need be. And one area the board doesn't want to violate its own policy, and since we're not commissioning a 10-year report annually, it didn't make sense for us to keep this, particularly since we've just finished, as you mentioned, all the construction of the new school. So we thought we would recommend that we eliminate this with the understanding that we would naturally receive the report in the fall every year from the superintendent. I am. If you're ready to make it, yes.
Make a motion to delete that policy.
Series 77. Thank you, Ann. Second by Jody. Is there further discussion on that? Hearing none, we'll move to vote. All those in favor of the deletion, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. That carries. Now, before we go to a motion to executive session, I think I speak on behalf of the Board of Ed when I wish all of our administrators, and if you'll pass it on to our teachers, a very Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. We thank you very much for all your dedication, the love and the support that you give to our school system. The Board of Education appreciates very much all of you. Thank you. So we'll let you go, and we'll go into a motion for executive session, and we'll invite Mr. Ryan and Mr. Belair. And Mr. McQueen, naturally. All those in favor?